everybody, welcome to our foam rolling tutorial for the back and neck. You're going to need ideally a 36-inch long by 6-inch foam roller. This is the kind that we have here at the office. It's not too hard, not too soft. If you've got a half-length one at home, you're going to find the whole first half of this video is not going to be super helpful for you. So I do recommend you get a full-length roller. And I like these ones because they've got a little texture on them and they're not so uncomfortable. If the roller you've been using is very hard, you're probably not going to enjoy foam rolling. So give a softer one a shot and you're welcome to try out the ones we have here. So the first thing we're going to do is actually not use the roller at all. We're just going to lay flat on the floor and kind of do a check-in. We're going to do a little pre-rolling assessment. So I just want you to close your eyes, lay flat, let everything relax. This is very much like the Shavasana or corpse pose in yoga. And just feel like who's touching the floor right now. The backs of my calves, the backs of my heels, back of my head, shoulder blades. Do they feel even? Does one feel hiked up? Does one feel pulled forward? Does it feel like my weight's 50-50? Does it feel like one hip is more turned out than the other side? Just take inventory and then also check in with kind of your scoopy spots. So the little scoop under your low back, the scoop behind your neck, if you've got any kind of scoop under your arms here, if your arms are really tight, and then is it very easy or comfortable to turn your neck to the left and right, or is it a little pinchy, or do you feel like you can't go as far on one side? Okay, so just a little pre-check-in before we start foam rolling, and then we'll check in at the end and see what feels different. All right, so the first step that sometimes people really have a surprising amount of difficulty with is getting on the darn thing, because you're trying to get on a squirrely moving thing. If you're having some low back pain, this can be challenging, but what I usually like to do is just kind of get my tail on there, get it right in the middle. If you need to hold your head, if you've got some neck pain, or if you need to ease your arms down, those are all okay. All right, get yourself nice and situated. Feet are wide enough apart that you've got a nice base. The closer my feet are together, the more unstable this becomes. So give yourself every advantage, get a nice wide base here. This first one we just call rock and roll, and we're just gonna have our arms out like little wings for stability, and I'm just gonna roll back and forth on the roller. This is a nice time to just kind of downshift, slow down, check in, and just soften and let yourself kind of change gears and settle into a really nice restorative rolling session. Foam rolling should feel yummy. It should feel really relaxing. I often suggest to patients that they just put on some nice music and do this before bed as a great before bedtime routine. Or if you tend to wake up stiff in the morning, do it first thing in the morning. Really, you can't go wrong. It's a really nice break if you're working from home right now and you have the opportunity to take a foam rolling break in the middle of the day. It's pretty great. So you can rock and roll where you're rolling with the roller, and then some patients prefer to try to stay parallel to the floor and they're kind of rolling the roller under them. Those are both fine. I prefer this version, but you can try both and see which one you like better. So there's, like, I'm staying parallel to the floor and rolling versus I'm tipping with the roller. All right, so that's number one, rock and roll. And you can do that for as long as feels good to you. There's no exact number of repetitions or amount of time. Just take this chance to take some nice big breaths with your diaphragm. And really just let everything, just melt away. All right, so rock and roll. All right, next up is our pelvic tuck and tilt. This is going to help loosen up the low back and reduce any stiffness you've got there. And if you were noticing when you were doing your pre-assessment that your low back felt really uncomfortable and kind of arched up off the floor, this is the money, the jam to get this to feel better. All we're doing is rotating right here through the hip socket, and my pelvis is going to tip forward, okay, like I'm tipping a soup bowl forward, and then it's going to roll back flat onto the roller. So you should feel your low back flatten into the roller here, and your tailbone kind of scoop up towards the ceiling. What I shouldn't feel is that I'm really pushing out of my feet or using my hamstrings. If my hair and head are sliding up and down the roller, you are definitely working too hard. Okay, this is a pretty small movement, big arch and flatten. Which one's a tuck and which one's a tilt, I'll let you decide but we're just tipping forward and then backward. Forward, really you should feel your tummy doing the work, and backward I shouldn't feel a lot of big pressure changes through my feet. Forward and backward. I don't just do little wimpy ones. Really try to see how much motion do I have available here and here. And spend a moment or two at the end range of each if you can comfortably, and just feel how that feels. And we're just exploring this movement. Tuck and tilt. All right. All right, our next move with the roller lengthwise is going to be floor angels. So you're going to take both arms, bring them up to this kind of field goal position where my arm is about 90 degrees up from my body. You may notice a big difference in what your shoulders do versus what I'm showing here, depending on how tight the front of your chest is, the front of your shoulder, and your upper back. Your arms might be clear up here, okay? As we start to create some space here, your arms are gonna come way down here. Some people can almost touch the floor here. I can just kind of graze it. But don't force anything. You're not winning at foam rolling if you're touching the floor, and you're definitely not winning if you're having any pain, okay? So just bring these guys down. Now imagine your forearm is on a little parallel, like a little table or something parallel to the floor, and try to just slide your forearms up. And then pull, think about pulling your elbows down towards your ribs. They're not gonna make it all the way to your ribs. Watch what my arms do if I try to do that. See how they come forward, like a seal clapping or something? That's not our goal. Really, you should feel your shoulder blades kind of swinging on the roller as you come up, and then they're gonna swing down and kind of squeeze the roller here at the bottom. All right, so some things to watch for is my arms starting to creep back up towards the ceiling. This happens a lot. Or my forearms starting to creep to where they're not parallel to the floor anymore. So I'd rather you stay parallel, but you're higher off the floor, than that you're really trying to come down here, but these guys are cheating up like that. Okay, so just watch for those sneaky forearms, and every few reps, maybe check in, pull down, and check that you're still parallel and that you haven't cheated up. All right, so floor angels, up and pull down. And again, you can pause anywhere where it feels like, ooh, that feels like a little grumpy or like it needs a little extra love. Use your breath and spend a little time there. So up and pull down, and that's floor angels. All right, our next move, which is really great for all my desk computer workers and people with a lot of upper back and neck stiffness. This is gonna free my shoulder blades up on my rib cage. So we call this a shoulder blade reach and pull, okay? And it's a little tricky at first because we're not used to paying attention to how our shoulder blades move. We think about our hands, our elbows, or our shoulder joint, but I want you to see that my arm is not gonna bend. My shoulder is reaching from back here. So it's gonna reach forward, and then it's gonna round back and kind of hug the roller. And it's pretty yummy feeling, actually. You get kind of a free massage from the roller here. So all that motion is happening between my shoulder blade and my rib cage. It's not me doing this or this, okay? So reach and pull back. And then we're gonna do that at a bunch of different angles. So I'm gonna show you with both arms. So I'll just start here, straight up towards the ceiling, round, and then pull back. Round, and then pull back. And that gets kind of the middle of my shoulder blade, but I can come down here. I can come down here like I have a giant punch bowl and get the bottom edge of my shoulder blade. I can come up here, and then I can come up here and get the top corner of my shoulder blade. And this is pretty yummy, but make sure as you come here that I'm not just moving from my shoulder joint, that I'm moving my shoulder blades. So you should feel them kind of hugging the roller in the back. Round them forward each time, and then pull them back each time. If your elbows bend a little, that's okay, but just make sure that's not the only part that's moving. The other variation I want to show you is your shoulder blade has the ability to tip and tilt on the rib cage, okay? So when my arms are vertical like this, my shoulder blade's in one position. When my arms are back like this, like we just did for floor angels, my shoulder blade actually tips back a little. So this will feel really different than this. So I want you to try both of those, and you might find like, oh, this is really my grumpy spot. I want to really spend some extra time here versus this. Or you might find they're about the same, and that's fine. I just want to show you that this squeezing is a little different than this squeezing. Okay, so play around with shoulder blade reach and pull, and really spend some time there. You're going to be surprised at how grumpy those shoulder blades can be. All right, have fun with that. Next up in our foam rolling sequence is our pec stretch. Your pecs are here and they can get really tight when you're sitting, typing in a computer all day, driving, kind of schlimping on the couch and watching TV, and that really contributes to having that rounded forward head posture, some chronic upper back and neck pain. And a lot of pec stretches involve kind of putting your hand in a doorway and just cranking on it. I like this one a lot better because we're going to let the body relax in its own time. The pec is a big fan-shaped muscle that comes all along here and comes over to the arm. But the really grumpy part is often pec minor, which is this little guy that runs here kind of at 10 and 2 on this little 45-degree angle almost. So what I like to do is just kind of check in. You can bring your arm out to about 3 o'clock and see how that is. If you can't even get your arm to the floor here, that's where you're going to start. If you can get up to 1 or 2 o'clock, you're welcome to start there. But instead of cranking on my arm or having my arm off the ground, I'm going to set my arm on the ground, let it really soften and relax here, and then roll the roller away from it. As long as my hand is touching the ground, my body feels like this is safe and it's going to let this relaxation happen. As soon as my hand comes off the ground, this all tightens up in the front of my shoulder. Okay, so again, check in. Also, I like to do one arm at a time. This feels a little intense sometimes. All right, so start here and just slowly roll away. Leave the back of your hand on the ground. Once you're there, you can do a couple things. You can kind of waggle your arm around and look for grumpy spots. Or what I really like to do is pretend I'm unscrewing a light bulb or turning a doorknob and turn this whole arm just kind of slowly in and out and really get all these fibers across the front of my shoulder. And you'll be surprised at how grumpy some stuff is in here. Make sure you're turning from the shoulder joint and not just flopping your forearm over. Okay, that's a spot that often people are like, I don't feel it, but we've got a whole separate joint right here that's just the elbow rotating. So turn that whole shoulder, roll away, and come back. All right, so try that on both sides. All right, now we're going to turn the foam roller the other direction, and we're going to do a whole series of movements with the foam roller this way. The first thing we're going to work on is something you maybe don't think about for neck or upper back or even lower back pain, which is your lats or your latissimus dorsi. This is that big muscle you see on swimmers and rock climbers, gives them that nice V shape. And so basically it's this big meaty wad kind of that makes up the back of your armpit. Okay, it runs all the way from my shoulders down into my low back. And so we're going to get at it by laying on the foam roller sideways, and I like to go just here, and I want my chest not square to the floor, but I want to be tilted up sort of towards the ceiling, corner of the ceiling. This top foot's going to be here so that you can use it to roll a little bit. And this arm is just as floppy and loose as you can make it. Sometimes my patients with a little neck pain have a hard time holding their head up here. If that's you, you can skip this, or you can try to support that head with your other hand with like a sky hook. It gets a little awkward, so just do the best you can. But you should feel this kind of big, meaty wad on the back side of your armpit right on that roller. Now there's a few things we can do here. We can just rock pretty small little motion right here and look for grumpy spots, and you can fine tune it by just kind of coming forward or backward a little bit until you're like, oh yeah, that's the spot. You can also get this muscle on the back of your shoulder blade, which is part of your rotator cuff, and he is very grumpy in all my computer workers. So don't be afraid to come back here a little bit onto that shoulder blade and find that guy, and you'll know when you find him because he'll tell you. All right, so we can roll a little bit this way. We can come down and follow the lat down the rib cage. The further down you go, the more you need to turn up and face the ceiling. If I just stay here, you'll know because you'll just be on a rib and it just doesn't feel good at all. Okay, so if you're like, wow, that all of a sudden feels awful, you're probably on your rib and not on the lat anymore. okay? The other thing you can do, and this is where I like the little texture on this roller, is I can go back and forth, okay? So you can think of it sort of like you guys say like grating cheese, but I don't know if you want to think about your muscles like that. So I can slide sort of my whole body forward and backward, and you'll feel that muscle just sort of flipping over the roller like that, and it feels surprisingly good, okay? So I can slide, or I can sort of roll and slide where my torso's kind of rolling as I'm coming forward, and you can just play with those. Scooch down, get this little piece, roll and slide, or just slide. All right, and then play with all that stuff on the back of the shoulder blade, until you've got that all cleaned up. All right, so that's how we foam roll the lat. All right, moving on down the road, our next piece is gonna be how to foam roll the neck, and there's a bunch of muscles that attach from your neck to the base of your skull that get super cranky, especially when we've got our head forward, when we're driving, when we're typing, and they can give you whomping headaches and stuff like that. So you want to find this big bump on the back of your head and notice that it comes down sort of like an upside down V or an A-frame to these big kind of knobs back here just behind your earlobes, okay? So keep those landmarks in mind. We're going to put those on the roller. So you want to take the roller, and I want to find that knob, and I want to be just underneath it. So like if it was like a little shelf, I've got the roller just underneath it, and you might have to fine tune it up and down a little bit until you get the hang of it. Once I've got the roller there, I'm going to say yes, and I want to keep a pretty consistent pressure. I'm pushing my head just a little bit back onto the roller here. I can say no. Okay, and then I can make little circles. So I like to imagine I have a laser nose, and I'm making little circles on the ceiling, clockwise, counterclockwise, or if you're feeling fancy, you can do figure eights, okay? And just start to loosen up some of those muscle connections. And if the roller starts sneaking away on you, then scooch it back. So the roller is not under my neck here. This is really different, okay? It's just on the bottom of my skull, and I want to make sure you got that point. Now when we're going to come down and do these little V's, I might need to scooch the roller down just a little bit, and I'm going to show you this side. All the muscles on this, like upper trap and all this shoulder attached to this side, so I don't want to use this hand to help because that's the muscle I'm trying to relax. So if I'm going to try to release the right side of my neck, I'm going to put that kind of grumpy wad on the roller, let this arm be loose, and use my opposite hand, and I can put a little pressure here and really get some good stuff on there. All right, and again, fine tune the roller a little if you need to, and really get some of that stuff loosened up out of there. All right, then we can do the other side. Same thing, just switch hands and try to keep a nice consistent pressure onto that spot. All right, and you could spend some real quality time here rubbing the back of your neck, and it feels pretty nice. All right, so that's how we use the foam roller on the neck. All right, this next part is the part when people think about foam rolling the spine, this is what they're usually thinking of. And this is where I see the most mistakes, unfortunately. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when I'm doing it correctly and incorrectly, and I'm going to show you what the spinal model is doing so you can kind of visualize why we're doing it the way we're doing it, okay? So first of all is, how do I hold my head up, which is a great big heavy guy, when I'm on this guy? So we're going to climb aboard our roller. I like to start just at the base of the neck here, and there's a couple of options for how to support my head. I like to make just kind of these big butterfly wings, and I want to have my arms as relaxed as possible, just barely enough effort to hold up this head. And so my neck is in a neutral position. If you can see right here, it's not cranked back, and really importantly, it's not pulled forward. If I want my upper back to bend backwards, it can't do that if my head's pulled forwards because it pulls my whole spine like a letter C. Can you see that? So if I'm trying to get some extension or backwards movement of my upper back, I've got to have my neck as neutral as possible, okay? So then we're gonna find a nice comfy position here. The other option is what I call the sky hook. This is much harder to pull off. You sort of make almost like crash pad arms here. The pro of this is it pulls my shoulder blades out of the way so I can get my spine on the roller a little better, but it's pretty hard to pull off and it's really hard not to do this. So that's not my favorite, but if you're having a hard time with this, you're certainly welcome to try it. All right, so we're gonna go back to our butterfly arms again, just as loose as I can be in the neck. And we're gonna pick our butt off the floor, and I like to just roll in segments. So just a few segments at a time. Where foam rolling gets really awkward is when you start trying to move your feet. That's when everything falls apart, okay? So I just like to do this in little sections and periodically check in with your neck and try to relax it. So just roll, and we're just sort of scanning here. We're creating a little movement of the fluids in the soft tissues. It should feel pretty yummy if you've got a relatively soft foam roller. If you've got a rock hard foam roller, this is not going to be a lot of fun. So we're scanning, and then when I finish that part, I might set my butt down, move my feet, and scan the next part. And you can work your way all the way down the spine, okay? Be a little careful when you get to the low back. Sometimes, especially on the 6-inch roller, this is a lot, right? So if you're feeling like this is too intense or this is painful, tap out, ease up on that part, okay? So first thing is going to be a scan. And again, just breathing and taking your time here. All right? And that's the first part of foam rolling segues. Hi, just to give you a visual of what we were talking about with the spine earlier, this is the base of the skull. This guy doesn't have a head, but this is that bump we were talking about on the back of your head here, and here's those kind of two big bumps behind your ears. So this part of the spine is my neck, okay, and then my ribs would start and come all the way down through here, and then this is my low back. So when I'm on the roller, if I've got my upper back on the roller and my neck is pulled forward, can you see that that makes this curve go the wrong way? So that's what I was trying to explain earlier. If my head's pulled forward, there's no way I'm going to get any backwards movement and stretching through this upper back. If my neck is just neutral and my butt's up off the floor, then I can really create this fulcrum with the roller, which is what I'm trying to do, is try to fold the section of the spine that's on the roller and let it just get yum backwards. Okay, so that's what we meant about pulling the head forward. Same thing if I crank my neck backwards, you can see that just looks unpleasant. And my fulcrum now is way up here. The part that's making the biggest hinge is in my neck. It's not on the roller at all. Okay, so we just want the head, just think Goldilocks, not too far forward, not too far backward. All right? All right, the next piece is going to be our little side bend, and I want you just to imagine if you took piano lessons as a kid, that metronome that just ticks back and forth. My metronome is going to be right here. The pivot point is going to be the part of my spine that's on the roller. So we've got our head supported just like we did before. My butt's firmly planted on the ground, and I'm just going to bring my elbow towards that same side hip. And I'm going to do this at each section of my back, so I could scooch up a section, come down here. It's not a big movement. All right, if my butt's moving, I'm definitely trying too hard. Okay, just the part that's on the roller and just a little side bend left and right. Good job. All right, so now that we've kind of scanned up and down the spine and loosened things up and noticed where we really need some extra love in TLC, now we're gonna find and zero in those spots and really spend some time sort of tractioning and stretching over that spot. So I'm going to show you a couple of tricks around that. And we're going to talk again about spinal curves here. So watch closely, and then I'll show you again with the spine what we're talking about. So again, we've got our nice little hammock for the head. I've already scanned and found some grumpy spots. Now I'm going to set my butt down on the floor, and I want to fold over the roller. And here's where it's really important to remember what we talked about with the spine. People feel like they want to sort of win at foam rolling, and the closer their head gets to the floor, the better job they're doing. And that's just not true. If I just crank my head back, I haven't changed this angle here at all. The roller is a hinge point. I'm trying to create a hinge in my spine where the roller is, And when the roller's up close to the top of my spine, there's not very far for it to go. Okay, so I want to keep this neutral. I want to make this the point that I'm just folding over. Okay, so my neck is relatively in the same position. It's not cranked back here, it's definitely not pulled forward. And also very important is my ribs are still kind of tucked down. Okay, the other mistake people make trying to do a better job at foam rolling, first is they crank back their head, and the second is they pop their ribs up. But you can see that's going to change where my curve is. If I want the curve right here where the roller is, but my ribs are sticking way up here, now my curve is way down here, and that's not where I want it. So keep those ribs tucked down, and just try to create some length right where the roller is. Now if you find a really good spot, this is a really good spot for me. After a while, your head gets to be about 800 pounds. So that's where it's nice to have a pillow or a folded blanket or something handy, because you're going to need some different thicknesses here that I can rest this big noggin on. So this is still pretty comfortable. Then I can take my arms out of the equation entirely and really let this just settle and stretch for an amount of time that I probably could not do while I'm holding up my head. Plus, the more I'm using my arms to hold up my head, of course I'm using some muscles in my upper back and my shoulder girdle to do that, so this lets them really be on vacation. Now with my knees bent and my arms down here, that's sort of the least amount of traction and stretch on my back. So now I can use my arms or my legs as sort of an intensity control knob. So I can take my arms and start to bring them up overhead, and I'm reaching that way, and really get a nice, really nice stretch to an upper back that I could never duplicate if I was having to hold up the weight of my own head. Okay, now the height of this cushion here is really important, and you'll just have to fool around with it at home, and it's going to be different heights depending on where I've got the roller in my spine. The lower down my spine the roller is, the smaller this needs to be, because my head's going to get pretty close to the floor. But if I had it up on something that was too high, I wouldn't get much of a stretch here at all. Okay, so you'll just have to fine tune it. But this feels super yummy. And then if you want a little extra, you can even straighten out your legs. And now I'm getting a pull from my legs and a pull from my arms. And I could get some pretty nice release here in the mid-back. All right, so that's how we're going to use the roller to traction the mid-back and really get some nice extension, some backwards movement, and open up that spine after you've been sitting in a computer all day like a grumpy little taco. All right, try that next. All right, just wanted to show you with the spine now what we were talking about when we were on the roller, and showing you the difference between keeping a neutral spine and keeping your ribs tucked down versus cranking your neck back or popping your ribs up. So here's our spine in neutral. If we crank our neck back, we're just really going to be sad about our neck, okay? And we're not changing the angle here, which is the part that we're trying to make a hinge. If I pop my ribs up, watch what happens to this curve. So now the highest point in my curve is way down here instead of here. So just keep those ribs tucked down, keep that neck neutral, and then make your hinge here where the roller is, and you're going to notice this feels really yummy and very different than just popping out your tummy, okay? All right, so now we've gone through our whole foam rolling sequence. I want you just to check back in like we did at the beginning, lay flat out, legs and arms outstretched, and just settle into the ground and see what feels different. Often what I notice is my low back is it's kind of softened and melted into the floor, and laying this way is much more comfortable. Whereas when I started, I really was like, ooh, I wish I could put my feet up on something. See if your hips feel like they're rotated to the same angle. How do my shoulder blades feel? When I turn my neck, do I have any pinching or pain at the end? Do I feel like my shoulder is coming along for the ride? Okay, so just check back in and give yourself a high five for spending some quality time on yourself today. Thanks for watching.